All right, Kyle Neddenriep back here. It's week one of the high school football season, and we're starting our show with Akeem Glaspie because why? How else would you start your first show other than talking to the man himself, Akeem Glaspie? But I'm going to touch on my game real quickly. At Warren Central tonight, Center Grove beats Warren Central 24-6, and I'll have a little bit more on that on the back end of this show. But wanted to get to Akeem, get him out of here so he can finish doing his story. Tonight, he was at the Butler Bowl, and it was a low-scoring game, kind of a surprising low-scoring game, but Cathedral wins it 8-0. And I told Akeem he looks like a Lawrence Central assistant with the shirt on. That's not an LC shirt he's wearing. I'll let you explain. But yeah, it sounded like a low-scoring game. Obviously, it was. How'd it go tonight, Akeem?
Yeah, so first off, representing the SIU Salukis as a SIU alum, and but yeah, no, 8-0 win from Cathedral. Fighting Irish defense had 4 interceptions. Defensive back, the sophomore Tim, I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm going to call him Tim O, had 2 interceptions, and then Zion Hill had another one, and Houston Dinwiddie had another. So 4 interceptions, and yeah, just a really good defensive effort from Cathedral. The front 7 was creating pressure the entire time, and it's just Ben Davis played 2 different quarterbacks. They started with sophomore Kenneth Doss, and then they went to a freshman, Gabe Kinnett, in the second half, but neither one could really move the ball. The passing game. I mean, it's early. You expect, even talking to Coach Peoples after the game, I mean, he wasn't super pleased with his own offense, and he said he expects his defense to be further along than the offense, and that seemed to be the case for both sides. A lot of good defense, but yeah, Ben Davis just really struggled to move the ball, and they couldn't run the ball, so we were, when they were behind the sticks, they were forced to pass, and just the Cathedral secondary, they're ball hawks. That when the ball's in the air, they're really making plays on the ball. They had 1 interception in the end zone. They had a blocked punt. Just a really strong all around performance from the Cathedral defense.
And talking to Bill Peoples yesterday, and in the preseason, I know he liked his line coming into the year, offensive line, but it looks like Ben Davis's defense must have been up to the challenge. How did Xavier Dangerfield and the Cathedral running offense look tonight?
Yeah, I believe Jimmy Pappas had over 100 yards rushing, and Xavier looked good as well. No really explosive plays, just kind of 4-5 yards at a time. But the lone touchdown was a touchdown pass from Coors to Drew Peterson. But again, that was set up through the running game. So I believe 9 of the first 11 plays were Cathedral runs. So the touchdown pass was off a play action pass. They send the receiver in motion. Coors rolls out to the right and hits Drew Peterson in the end zone. And so it was that was a lone touchdown of the game, but it was a passing touchdown, but it was set up from the Cathedral offense. And you're right, the offensive line did a really good job establishing the line of scrimmage, and that's probably going to be the strength for the team right now, because the passing offense was kind of up and down, a little hit or miss. They completed the one long pass when they needed to, but both running backs looked good, and the offensive line did a good job establishing the line of scrimmage.
And we kind of knew going in, Ben Davis playing those 2 young quarterbacks, probably interchanging them throughout. And, I know they like the talent of those young guys, but it's hard when you're a 6A program and you're playing young quarterbacks. It's just that's the reality of the situation. And how did Ben Davis – obviously the offense didn't score, Akeem, so couldn't have played that great. But what did they try to do tonight? I guess what when things did work, what was working for them?
Yeah, so they were spread wide with 4 wide receivers, but Cathedral, usually you would think that you would have the advantage in the boxing to be able to run, but Cathedral took the run away. And then so when Ben Davis tried to spread them out to pass, the long passes just were not working. I believe it was Doss had 1 long pass to Cam Crawford down the sideline. They had several. That was kind of on 3rd down because, again, they weren't able to run the ball. So a lot of heaves down the field, and they connected once. They just missed another long one, but that's kind of very low percentage passes that they were trying to do. And then the screen games, just some drop screens, some bounce throws, just it's out of sync, and like you said, with young quarterbacks early in the season, passing is all about timing. So it's not surprising that they're out of sync, and the Cathedral defense definitely did their part in keeping them out of sync and out of rhythm. So yeah, just a lot of like low percentage throws, a lot of throws down the field, and yeah, asking a lot from young quarterbacks. And like I said, 4 interceptions, that kind of speaks to the success that Ben Davis wasn't able to have, and it was just kind of all just not a very good offensive showing for Ben Davis right now.
And Akeem, it looked like that scoring play came in the first half, right? The Cathedral touchdown.
Yes.
And that after that, I mean, did Cathedral threaten much at all, or was it just kind of a slugfest after that?
Yeah, no, just Cathedral had a lot of self-inflicted errors. They had a blocked field goal. They missed a field goal. So, I mean, Cathedral had scoring opportunities. They just came up short. So, I mean, it could have been, like a 14, 20-0 game. But, yeah, Cathedral. And then they could have had a safety. They blocked the punt, goes out of the back of the end zone. I think Cathedral thought it should have been like a safety or a touchdown, but I guess it was ruled that they picked up the ball and dropped it out of bounds. So Ben Davis got the ball back. They had their punt blocked and got the ball back, which is, I don't know how often you see that. So, I mean, it was just a pretty dominating. I don't think 8-0 really kind of, really tells a story about how dominant Cathedral's defense was. And the offense, I mean, it did what it needed to do, but they missed a lot of kind of scoring opportunities. So, yeah, the final score doesn't really show how well the offense played, because they left some points on the field, definitely.
Were you able to talk to Coach Mann at all on Ben Davis's side?
I did not. It took me about 10 minutes to get Timmy after the game. He had 2 interceptions, so I wanted to make sure I spoke to him, and he kind of just talked about the defense is what they've been preparing for since January, and that they practice taking the ball away, and that's kind of my lead of the story is when the ball's in the air, they're not trying to knock it down, they're trying to take the ball away. So that credit to those defensive backs, those aren't kids that have rocks for hands, like defensive backs can kind of get the stigma. Those guys can make plays, and so the defense looks very solid, and that's kind of what I talked about. And apparently they get donuts tomorrow for throwing a shutout, so I'm sure they're excited about that.
I think we should all get donuts after first week, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so Cathedral will play. Cathedral's ranked second. I should have mentioned that in Class 5A. They will play Brownsburg next week, so a bigger challenge ahead, certainly after what Brownsburg did tonight against a nationally ranked team out of Maryland. I didn't see a final yet on that. I'll get that here in a minute, but looked like Brownsburg took care of business. So bigger things ahead for Cathedral. And interesting, too, you mentioned Pappas had over 100 yards, and Coach Peebles talked about how they were going to use both those running backs this season. And Dangerfield kind of got his chance last year because of some injuries, and took full advantage of that. But looks like Pappas is fully healthy and looked pretty good tonight, huh?
Yeah, I would say he kind of had, between the two, I think he had the most juice, honestly. Just kind of a smaller, shifty guy, and Dangerfield's definitely a bigger, more powerful back. But, yeah, Jimmy kind of broke off some long runs, definitely had the more yards per carry, I would say, between the two of them. But Dangerfield looked good as well. I mean, they're both efficient runners, not the most explosive guys, but they'll take what's given and, put their heads down and get some extra yardage as well.
Hey, give Dangerfield a little respect, huh?
He's a very talented kid. I think but Jimmy had more juice today. So
there you go. I always got to make my Rodney Dangerfield joke about when I'm talking about Dangerfield. So sorry about that. I had to involve you in that, but
okay. That went completely over my head. I get it now.
You're not of that generation. I understand. Akeem and Glaspie again and how was the crowd out there tonight? That's a great venue for a football game. I enjoy covering games there. Was it pretty good crowd and tailgate out there?
I mean, I would say it was pretty much a Cathedral home game, a very heavy Cathedral lean. The Ben Davis side was a little more sparse, but yeah, it was well attended overall, but I would definitely say more leaning Cathedral. But yeah, good atmosphere. I mean, I think it kind of winded down in the second half when it looked like Ben Davis wasn't going to be able to move the ball. And then they actually had a chance late in the game. But again, it ended with another interception on a kind of a heave toward the end zone. So, yeah, every time that Ben Davis kind of started to generate some momentum, it ended with a turnover. So, yeah, Ben Davis side wasn't really able to get into the game much, and it was kind of a pro Cathedral crowd anyway. So, yeah.
Definitely a younger team, inexperienced team. I think Ben Davis will end up being formidable. They play Avon next week at home. Avon, they got a huge win tonight. I saw over Decatur Central comeback win, so they'll be riding high. That'll be a big game. But yeah, good win for Cathedral. Like I said, they both have tough games next week. And Akeem, I'll let you get to writing, but appreciate you coming on here.
Yep, anytime, Kyle.
All right, man. We'll talk to you.
See ya.
All right. Well, thanks to Akeem for joining us there from his game, the Cathedral Ben Davis game. Next, we have Rich Torres, who is out watching Fishers and Carmel. And Carmel, man, I mean, they made a statement tonight. We just kind of talked before I started recording. That may be this. I haven't seen all the scores yet, but one of the biggest statements of Friday night had to be Carmel, 49-24 over Fishers, Rich. And that score was kind of going around at my game, and people definitely surprised at the margin. It wasn't a final yet, but at the margin at different points of that game. Tell us how it happened. What led to that big Carmel victory?
Efficiency, plain and simple. Carmel came out. They trailed 7-0. They were also down 10-7, but they scored on 6 of their first 7 drives, 7 of 10 overall. They went no huddle. They went huddle. They sped up the Fishers defense. They ran the ball equally as passing. I tell you what, Anthony Colner, the quarterback senior, he looks like he is a perfect fit for this offense under Coach Kevin Wright. And he was masterful. Coach Wright kind of told me after the game that he created quite a bit. He kind of created his own plays, but he ran that no huddle offense perfectly. And he ended up rushing for 112 yards, 3 touchdowns, all in the red zone. And then obviously completed 9 of 12 passes for 192 yards and a touchdown. So he had himself a day. And basically playing behind an offensive line that's pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of Cade Clark at center, I believe. Everyone's brand new. But that offensive line was tough today. A lot of protection, big yardage. Chunk yardage, rushing as well as passing, and they were perfect. I believe 5 for 5 on third down. So
wow.
Yeah, they actually I could probably look it up here real quick just so that way I don't give you something that's inaccurate here. 5 for 5 on third down, 6 of 7 on fourth down, or no, in red zone. Sorry, 6 of 7 in the red zone. So that just shows again that efficiency. Once they got downfield, they were ready to go.
So we knew a little bit about Fisher's question marks was probably even Coach Funk had said like up front had some question marks, and I guess it kind of played out that way physically. Carmel was able to kind of do what they wanted, which obviously that bodes well from the Carmel standpoint. First, Rich, just how you mentioned the Kevin Wright factor. I mean, that was one of the biggest storylines I think of the offseason was. Can Carmel turn the corner now with Kevin Wright as coach? I think we'll find out more next week. They play Westfield, obviously a very good team. But certainly tonight, all indications are that they're ready to kind of punch with the big some of the bigger teams in 6A.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 6 rushing touchdowns overall for them. So over 500 yards total offense. And Coach Wright kind of mentioned when I talked to him after the game that they're aiming to set the standard again. They kind of got away from that. Obviously Carmel's always been known as a powerhouse, especially when he was there. And even after he left, they were still a contender. They were making state. They were winning state championships. And I think they kind of took a little bit of a dip here in recent years. And Anthony Colner, as well as Coach Wright, both echoed this. And they just said that they want to get back to that expectation of winning. Not only just building wins, but believing in wins before you even take the field. And you could see it throughout that entire roster, the sideline, it just overall, their mindset is that we are Carmel and we're supposed to win. And they kind of came out and did that tonight. I mean, realistically, and you could really see that philosophy shift just the way they responded to Coach Wright, and throughout the game, and then also after the game. And yeah, you're right. I mean, having him back kind of changes the whole culture and complexion. And Anthony mentioned that culture shift, how leadership has kind of rose up a little bit more. Guys are being more accountable. Granted, it's week one, but if this is just an example of what we're going to see the next couple months, I think we're in for a treat if you're rooting for Carmel, who obviously kind of got left out of some of the rankings when you look at it, which is interesting to me. But I have no doubt they're going to be in the top 10 now, probably for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And they were kind of right on that borderline of being in the top 10. And, some people I know had them in, some didn't. They ended up being, just, on the cusp of, being in there. But, yeah, I think they're a team that, I did like their talent, going into the year. They look like a team that, if things come together, obviously Anthony's been a quarterback at Carmel for a couple of years now. And I was going to ask you too, just how did the receiving group look? I mean, I think that was a group that Coach Wright liked going into it. How'd that group do tonight?
They did great. Obviously, 192 yards passing for Anthony. So Dominic Shockley was the primary yardage receiver. He had 100 yards on 4 catches, but Jacob Bellin had the touchdown. 68 yards on 3 catches. The touchdown was 24 yards. And it was a beautiful one, too, because it was an over-the-shoulder corner of the end zone on 4th down. So, it was, again, surgical execution, systematic. It looked like a Carmel team of old, and that receiving corps stepped up just like the running backs. Obviously, Andrew Pemberton had 107 yards and a touchdown, and then Aiden Johnson had 2 touchdowns on 80 yards, when Anthony wasn't scoring. So they're multifaceted. They're versatile. They can speed you up. They can slow you down. And they're pretty good on defense too. They forced 2 turnover on downs. They really hemmed up Fisher's passing attack a little bit. They gave up big yards too. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they go out there and pitch a shutout every time, but they do enough to slow you down, especially in those later downs. And you can see that as the game continued on, that defense got stronger.
And from the other side, Rich, you said, Gage Sturgill, I thought was a big story going in because he was, he threw for over 1,000 yards last year and only played like 5 games, not even 5. So he was off to a great start to his season, got hurt, unfortunately. And then we didn't see him the rest of the year. And he's going to Western Illinois. He's a really good quarterback, but just what were your takeaways from Fishers as you leave this game tonight?
I'm impressed with Fishers. Even though the score looked lopsided, they're not a team that you should sleep on whatsoever. They are obviously, this is post John Anthony Hall era. So we do have to take that into consideration. But Gage looked fantastic. He passed for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice. And that kind of hurt him on some drives. But he was 19 to 27, and he went out there and he spread the ball around. He created quite a bit. He rolled out of the pocket when he was under pressure, and he found his receivers downfield. Vincent Rossi had 2 touchdowns, 70 yards, and they had a 70-yard touchdown wiped out due to a holding call, which would have put them up because they were down by 4 in the second quarter, and that would have put them up. And it could have been a different game if that play would have held up because that drive stalled out. So it is interesting. It's like that one microcosm moment where you're just like, man, if that would have happened, how would this game maybe have turned? But Carmel just kept going. And while Fishers kind of, struggled a little bit after that drive. But overall, though, their running game, again, produced 231 yards. Ryan was the head of the group as usual, 125 yards and a touchdown. So, wow. Yeah, you knew he was going to do what he was going to do, and he did. But Carmel just did more.
When you can produce like that on offense, it's hard to keep up with them. But Fishers at Carmel next week, like I said, they will play. They have a really tough game. I mean, that game against Westfield, I'm sure will be well attended. It's kind of I'll have to look in. The stadium is still kind of under construction, so that'll be interesting because that crowd's going to be enormous. So that'll be interesting how that all looks next week. And then Fishers goes to Lawrence North, so they don't have any let up either. Lawrence North beat LC tonight in that rivalry game. Again, it was close, but that game's normally close. Lawrence North, very good, talented team. So it doesn't get any easier for the Tigers. Doesn't get any easier for either of these teams next week. But like you said, Rich, great start for Carmel. That's you couldn't have drawn it up much better than that.
Man, you talking about all those matchups next week? I mean, welcome to 6A football, right?
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter what conference you're in. It doesn't matter where you are in the state. I mean, it's always going to be a big matchup. It's yeah, I'm kind of curious about that Carmel game too, like how they're maybe they'll move it to a neutral site. You never know, right?
They're going to want to keep that gate. I know that for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's good.
They're getting a. I know last year that was the game. I covered that game last year. It was the weather night, one of the two weather night games, and they had to play on Saturday. So that was, or they moved it like I think it was the middle of the second quarter is when it came through, and then they moved it to Saturday. So it kind of killed the crowd, but for the next day, it was a decent crowd, but it wasn't quite what it would have been that Friday night. But at any rate, it's great. These teams are playing each other. I like, you get Fishers Carmel. I'm sure it was a good crowd. It'll be probably even better next week for Westfield Carmel. So it's good these teams are playing each other.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive crowd tonight. Fishers really showed out, and Carmel had a really good showing as well. But yeah, you're right. I think that Westfield Carmel game. I mean, Westfield every week they come out. Their fans are very supportive, and I think a lot of Carmel fans who may have kind of drifted off are going to gravitate back to this team because they're fun to watch. If you're into high octane offense, then they're a good team to watch.
All right. Well, again, Rich Torres, I'll let you get back to writing here, Rich. But 49-24, Carmel beats Fishers tonight, and you can read all of Rich's work in the. We'll have the story in the IndyStar tonight. So appreciate you coming on here, Rich.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. So thanks to Akeem and Rich Torres again. Akeem's game 8-0. Cathedral beats Ben Davis tonight, and Rich's game was 49-24. Again, Carmel comes out punching. They knocked off Fishers in a kind of a shootout type of game, and I think probably send a little bit of a message to and we'll, like I said, this week one, we'll see what happens week two. That's just kind of the that's kind of the way it works, and you don't want to read too much into one game, but that's all the evidence we have right now is the one game. So my game tonight, I wanted to kind of go through my game a little bit and then kind of touch on some of the highlights from the other games in the area, at least some of the bigger games. And I've got most of the scores I'm recording this about 11:30 on Friday night here, and I still have to do some writing here too, so I won't be on here too much longer here. But my game was 24-6. Center Grove beats Warren Central. Center Grove ranked number 3 in Class 6A. Warren Central number 6, and it kind of went, I would say, as I kind of thought it might. In some ways, not so much. Warren is without JJ Finch, did not play tonight. Caleb Elkins did not play tonight. So you're down 2 big-time defensive players, Warren Central. So, man, you're kind of up against it from that standpoint. Talking to JT Whitaker, the new Warren Central coach after the game, Finch was out with a foot injury. He thinks he'll be back. He didn't want to put a timeline on it, but we'll be back at some point soon, I would say, and I'll have more on that in the written form. But and then Elkins should be like within 2 weeks probably. So he's been, ramping up and probably will be back in week 3, right in that range. So, both those guys will be back. But overall, I thought their defense played really well. Center Grove ran the ball, but not at will. They ran the ball, I think, for 242 yards total, but it wasn't like they were just chunk. It was, a lot of times too that, it would be, hit at the line and dropped, and then they would gain, Nolan Reese ended up getting 139 yards on 20 carries. he had a couple touchdowns. The last one was kind of the clincher. It was 21-yard touchdown for the final touchdown to make it 24-6 with about 2 minutes left, and that was kind of the final dagger, you would say. So they did run the ball well, but I thought Warren's defense held up. That if the defense plays like that every week, I think they're going to be a pretty good team and keep their team in games. The offense has to come around, but and I'll get to that in a minute. From the Warren side, from the Center Grove side, I thought it was just overall a pretty solid win. The penalties, and I still have to count up the penalties to know how many they had. It was a lot. There was a lot of false starts, a lot of holdings, just miscellaneous mistakes that were made on the offensive side, and some defensive penalties. There was one penalty called on the defense that kind of kept the drive going that led to the touchdown, or at least allowed Warren Central to get to the 2-yard line. That it would have been a tougher attempt at a touchdown. So it's 3rd and goal from about the 1.5 instead of a little bit farther out. And Keon Thomas took it in and scored. So just a lot of things that need to be worked on. And I'm sure Eric Moore doesn't actually hate that. I mean, there's plenty to work on, which I think he likes. So the passing game, Oscar Sloan, I talked to him, the sophomore quarterback. Didn't have a huge game. They didn't really. They tried a couple passes down the field. It was more of kind of controlled passing game. It was basically like, hey, we're running. Let's keep running and let's mix in some passes here and there. Sloan was 8 for 11, 71 yards. Dominic Berry had 4 of those catches for 29. McClurg had 3 for 35 yards. Not a lot of huge explosive plays in this game. I will say I do, in addition to Nolan Reese, Hudson Winkler, another running back, had 12 carries for 68 yards and 1 touchdown. And there's a kid named Ricky Lang who's going to be a really good player. I really liked what I saw to him tonight. I'd heard about it, watched his video a little bit, knew he was a good player coming up in the system. He's going to be really good. He's had 7 carries for 36 yards tonight, but, his best days are certainly ahead of him. So Center Grove on their side, just overall solid, kind of what you expect. Offensive line, I thought, played really well. Sloan played solid, didn't force anything. He got sacked a couple times. Warren did a good job kind of heating him up a little bit at times on some obvious passing situations. And, Warren's defense, I thought, contributed some things that made it tough for him. Overall, I thought he had a good game. We'll certainly learn from things that happen tonight, take that into week 2 against Carroll. So Center Grove's schedule, sets up. They have at Carroll next week in Fort Wayne. They have Marion and then host Ben Davis and then play Trotwood Madison out of Ohio. So they have a little bit different of a schedule here these next 2 weeks. I think Carroll's going to be a team that should be pretty good, have given them a challenge at least the last couple of years. And, so we'll see what happens there. But, just kind of, I think what you expect from Center Grove pretty much going into the season is what we saw tonight for the most part. And from Warren, again, hard to judge completely just because, they're missing 2 guys. But I'll tell you, maybe one of the eye-openers for me definitely was Keon Thomas, the running back for Warren Central. Junior has offers already. That guy, he's going to Purdue next week to go to a game. That guy's going to be, he's really good, a really strong runner, can turn the corner. Talking to Eric Moore from Center Grove, the Center Grove coach, he was very impressed with him. I don't know how you couldn't be. Very, very impressive. He's guys, I like running backs who are kind of falling forward every time they carry, and they're, even when they get hit, they're getting that extra yard when they fall down. He's that type of running back. So he is going to be really, really good. And if you can lean on a guy like that, your offense is going to have a chance to go somewhere. And they ended up only getting, like I said, the 6 points. But, I thought the offense did show some things with the 2 quarterbacks. They played both Joe Goss and Anthony Dennison. There were some drops that made their numbers not look probably as good as they could have been. Definitely some improvement needs to be made for both those guys. They ended up, I think, 9 for 23 combined for 110 yards in that range. So not huge numbers. They're playing some different guys at receiver too this year. So a lot of new 19 new starters basically were out there tonight for Warren Central. So it's a good starting point, I would say. I think you come away from this game feeling like some good things happened. They got behind early, and the defense was keeping them in the game. They held Center Grove to a field goal early. It was 10-0. They missed a field goal, really missed an opportunity at the end of the first half. Stopped at the 2-yard line, then they miss a 22-yard field goal that could have made it 10-3 going into halftime. So then you're up against it, and then later in the third quarter, Center Grove took a 17-0 lead. Looked like it might be a runaway at that point, and then Warren kind of turned the tables on him, got that touchdown, made it 17-6, and then actually got the ball back, a 3-and-out. They're moving it for the first time through the air, hit a couple passes. Dennison hit a couple passes. They're sitting at the 14-yard line with about a little more than 5 minutes left and a chance to cut it to a one-score game. But then an interception. It was Jackson Burnett was waiting, or Burnett, I'm sorry. Jackson Burnett was in the end zone there, made the interception, and that was kind of the turning point, in the game right there, because Center Grove goes back down, takes some time off the clock, punt it, and then recover a missed opportunity, a fumble to keep the drive, or to allow Center Grove to get the ball back and then score again. So that was kind of the end of the game, basically. But overall, I thought Warren, hung in there, played hard, and had some mistakes, but I think can learn from this. Like I said, the defense I thought held up pretty well. Offense has some work to do, but definitely they have a running back who's just one of the better running backs I think in Indiana. So he's going to have a big year as long as he stays healthy in these coming weeks. So again, Warren Central falls 24-6 to Center Grove in the opener out here at Warren tonight. So hitting some of the other games, like I said, we talked about the two with Rich and Akeem. So we've touched on those. Kind of going down the list here, was looking through some of the, and I think, maybe the big matchup tonight that, from a statewide perspective and, just knowing both teams are ranked in the top 50. I don't have so many details on this just yet. I haven't read everything yet, but Brownsburg beats Archbishop Spalding out of Maryland tonight, 36-23. And, that's a great win, not only for Brownsburg, but for Indiana football. When you can beat a national team like that, and it kind of carries the rest of the state a little bit too. Like you'll see Brownsburg going up in some national rankings, that'll help, whoever else who's ranked in the top, Center Grove, help, Westfield or whoever else is ranked highly in the national rankings. So that's a good thing in the big picture. So Brownsburg gets a big win over Archbishop Spalding tonight, 36-23. And pretty much controlled that game. It appeared after, it was 14-10 at halftime. Yeah, Brownsburg came out, and Clark Wade was at that game, has video highlights, I know, that he posted. And, that's just, like I said, really good win, big crowd, new facilities there at Brownsburg, a lot of new things going on there. So just overall a good win. Brownsburg will play next week. So, that's definitely both sides. But good overall win. Like I said, for the state, for kind of a state bragging rights type of situation. Mooresville beats Bloomington North 28-14. Our roundup is online. You can kind of check these scores as well. But Mooresville wins 28-14 tonight. New ranked number 1 in 5A. They win 52-0 over Kokomo tonight. So not much difficulty there. Franklin beat Southport 38-0. Roncalli 3-0 over Dwenger. That was a fourth quarter field goal as well. So that was a game, two teams ranked in top 10 in 4A with a fourth quarter field goal. I don't know if there was a mitigating, weather or what, but that's quite a score there. You don't see that very often. That's like a 1985 score. Greenwood beat Seymour 38-8. That was a good win for the Woodmen tonight. Aiden Hausman threw a couple of touchdown passes. Let's see. So, that was a 17-8 at halftime. Greenwood dominates the second half in that one tonight. So, Noblesville wins 21-6 over Mount Vernon. Noblesville led that one 7-0 at half, and then we got out to a 21-0 lead in the fourth quarter before Mount Vernon scored in that one. Some of the other games, Avon beat Decatur Central 30-28 in overtime. That was a huge win for Avon. They come back in that game. So I actually had picked that game, Avon, to win that, and got that one right. Surprising score tonight: Bedford North Lawrence beat Martinsville 33-15. Another surprise: Beech Grove beat Greenfield Central 28-9. So a couple of surprising scores there. And Bishop Chatard, one of the better games of the night, beats Lafayette Jeff 35-28. Cardinal Ritter beats Tech 19-12. Cascade gets it rolling. They beat Monrovia 48-6. Columbus North 49-7 over Whiteland. That's a bit of a surprise in the spread on that one. Eastern Hancock 50, Greencastle 14. Faith Christian 32, Irvington Prep 8. Franklin Central 48-6 over Perry. Gibson Southern beats Danville. That's a big game down south tonight. 35-28. Gibson Southern beats Danville. Guerin Catholic 30-13 over McCutcheon. HSE wins 14-7 over Carroll. Last I saw that was 0-0, so I think all the scoring in the second half of that game. Heritage Christian beat Speedway 36-15. Indian Creek 20, Western 13, LaPel 23, Hamilton Heights 7. Lawrence North, Battle of the Bell, they beat LC 34-27. That game always seems to come down to the wire. Last I saw on the Lutheran score was 35-30. So that was a wild one with Addicts. Hopefully we'll get a final, or you see one on there at some point here tonight. North Central 35-13 over Brebeuf. That was a game that North Central's added some talent to their roster for sure, but they end a long losing streak. So good to see the Panthers be able to get on the winning side, first time in a long time. Park Tudor 44-34 over Covenant Christian. Pendleton Heights 22, Lebanon 14. Plainfield 31-7 over Terre Haute South. Purdue Poly beat Shortridge 6-0. Cecina beat Concordia Lutheran 48-28. Shelbyville 34-14 over Greensburg. Sheridan in a close one. That's a good 1A battle there. 32-29 over Greenwood Christian. Tinley 28, Edinburgh 14. Tri-West beats Western Boone 35-7. Triton Central over Batesville 11-10. And Westfield beat Homestead 35-0. And also Zionsville, good win for Zionsville tonight over Pike 27-7. So that's kind of where things stand tonight. And we'll have plenty more. I'm probably going to try to catch up with some coaches actually and do some of these videos. Don't want to make any promises, but try to do a little bit more of this from interviewing coaches after games, things like that. But again, need to get to writing. So appreciate you being here with us, and we'll do this obviously again next week from in the car. I'm going to try to get a ring light, I guess, and make this easier to see me. I think if I lean in, you can see me a little bit better, but I don't know if I need to get too close to the camera. But yeah, sort of nitty gritty doing this in the car like usual. But appreciate everybody listening and chiming in here. Rich and Akeem for coming in and joining me, and we'll talk to you next time.